Hannah.
Hey, Erica.
I told you this before we started. I am so excited for this interview. I actually didn't tell you this though. I'm going to have this interview be the first one at the first of the year because I'm doing this theme where it's like January, new start, fun, exciting, have fun. It's you, Hannah.
Amazing. Indeed. That's so what an honor. What an honor. Thank you, Erica,
Oh,
for putting the start of 2024.
thank you for saying yes. Oh my gosh. Well, let me introduce you to everyone. This is Hannah Fernando. She's a registered nurse in New Zealand, and she has a
Mhm.
Bachelor of Nursing. She is a practice nurse, which to us means like a community nurse, and she works in an urgent care, and it's called all sorts of different things over there, and she's going to tell us all about it. But how I know Hannah is from Instagram, and it's that nurse Hannah, right? That's your handle, that nurse Hannah.
It
I have
is.
never laughed so hard. I think you're a comedian. I'm gonna write down comedian next to Hannah Fernando. And I was like, I have to have her on. Please say yes. And she said yes. So thank you so much.
So
So
welcome, Erica.
let's get started. I already gave it
Mhm.
away, but you're from New Zealand.
Yes, yes. Aotearoa. That's the Te Reo word for New Zealand. That is way down at the bottom of the southern hemisphere. Kind of, I think the fun fact, the most closest hospital to Antarctica, should you need to go to a hospital, is in my hometown in Christchurch. That's the closest hospital. So people based in like Scott base and stuff, or I can't remember what the US base is in Antarctica, but yeah, you need to go to Christchurch Hospital. So yeah,
So
we're
what is the weather like in New Zealand?
it's 4 seasons. Kind of where I'm from is the New Zealand's made up of two islands that kind of look like this.
Okay.
I'm on the South Island, which is the cooler island. Um, and it's got lots of mountains and waterfalls. It's very cold in winter.
Okay.
It's pretty hot in summer, but it's when you go up further north, it's more warmer, and like way down south is like getting to like not like well we do degrees, like -2, -3. Yeah, in wintertime it's pretty cold, which is I think like 32 degree Fahrenheit. Is that 0 degrees?
Zero is 0 degrees Celsius is 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
you're saying that
okay.
you're -2 Celsius. No.
Yes,
So it's even
yeah.
colder than
It's
negative
cold.
two. It's cold. You're near
It's
Antarctica.
cold. Yes, it is cold. It's warm though. Like it's sunny outside. It's currently spring. And
That's
I'm
right,
also
because
a
we're on
day ahead.
opposite schedules, right?
Yes. So weirdly, Christmas we celebrate that in the summer.
That's so weird to me. But yeah, I'm
I
sure you
know.
think it's weird for it to be cold during Christmas.
Well, yes and no, because all the, like music and songs and movies are all based in winter and
Uh,
over Christmas. So we kind of like love it. We kind of have the best of both worlds at Christmas time, but in winter, in the middle of the year, it's like pretty sad because it's cold and there's no Santa.
wah, wah.
Yeah. Wow. Fun. Talking about like temperatures.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So we were talking about this, a Bachelor of Nursing. How does nursing even work in New Zealand? Is it similar to the US where you have a 4-year degree and then you go out into the world?
Oh, ours was 3 years.
Okay.
I think there's two options in New Zealand now. There is what I got, which was a Bachelor of Nursing, which is a 3 year degree. You do that in a community university rather
Okay.
than like a university. I don't really know the difference apart from one's a bit more community focused.
Okay.
And then the second option is postgraduate nursing degree. So you can have almost, I think, any postgraduate degree, be it Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Communications, Bachelor of Science, any kind of bachelor's. And then for 2 years, but it's really crammed in, you can do a postgraduate degree in nursing and become a nurse within 2 years. But it's quite an intense training program. So those are the two options of becoming a registered nurse. Enrolled nursing is slightly different. If you guys do enrolled nursing, do you do that as an option?
I don't know. No, maybe it's called something else.
Maybe, yeah.
So registered, it sounds like what you just described is our accelerated bachelor's program. So you already have to have a degree in something else.
Yeah.
And then you can get an accelerated degree that's usually, it can be anywhere from 12 to 16 months intense.
Yeah.
And now you have another bachelor's degree in nursing. And then we have an associate's degree, which might be more like your community because that's typically at a community college.
Yeah, sounds real similar. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the licensed vocational nurse, which I think is at the community colleges, and it's maybe just 1 year. And you can't.
And that's enrolled nursing.
I thought it might be.
Yeah.
Yes. And that, I mean, to be honest, I think they can do mostly what registered nurses can do. They can't do drips, like in an ICU sort of setting. Maybe they can't push certain medications, but it's not a long list of things that they can't do, to be honest. But I will say most of the jobs in the US require an RN, registered nurse. So interesting. Okay. So why did you even want to become a nurse? Like, how did it occur to you?
Well, I was originally doing engineering.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Don't get too excited. Only for like a day and a half. And then I did the sciences. I did physics, chemistry, biology, and where I went to school, they were very much like they didn't really promote community university. They were like, go to the top universities. And we've got like maybe top 5 universities in New Zealand. And New Zealand's quite small. It's only made up of 5 million people. So I was aiming towards one of the main universities to do engineering. And then I hated it. Like I was not excited to go to university.
After 1.5 days, you're like, no.
1.5 days. Yeah. No. I actually asked for a sign. I was like writing out my simultaneous equation. It took me like 5 billion hours, and I finally got the answer. And I was like, that took far too long. I don't have a natural ability for this sort of stuff. What do I do? I remember I was like, do I do this? Give me a sign. I don't know if I should do engineering. And then the next day we had a huge earthquake, like very, very big. People died. It was pretty intense back in 2011. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is a sign. This is a sign. And in the extension, so all of universities were put on hold in Christchurch, where I live, the town that I live in, and everyone was like, I just want to go back to study. I want to go back to do my degree. And I was like, I don't want to go back. And I was like, really lots of health came out of it, lots of like mental awareness, resilience, lots of praise from the doctors and the nurses. And on the day in town, we have quite an old town. A lot of buildings fell down, and a lot of facades injured, and even sadly killed some people. And there was a huge nursing conference in the middle of town, and so many nurses came out to help. And I remember thinking that would be such a cool job to actually know how to like save lives, to learn the art of CPR. Like, why am I not learning how to save someone's life? So I ended up thinking, actually, that is a really cool job. I want to do that. I didn't want to become a doctor because I was like, too hard. I was just like, I don't want that kind of responsibility. And then I met a couple of nurses. Weirdly, like I donated blood like the following week, and this nurse was so cool. And she was like, yeah, like nursing's the best. So I met like a few cool people on that little journey within like maybe a month. And then I signed up for nursing, at the nursing school that semester, and then I met a friend I hadn't seen in years, and I was like, "You're doing nursing too," and it just all like flowed and aligned, and here I am, 10 years
Was
later.
the sign. I mean, that was sign
Yeah,
after sign after sign.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. And what year was that?
That was 2011. Yeah,
2011. Okay. So you've been a
yeah.
nurse. When did you graduate?
2014,
Okay.
and yes, I've almost hit 10 years. Whew.
I know. I was just talking to someone, was it earlier today? It's like they couldn't wait to hit that, 10-year mark. And then they'd feel like they knew what they were doing. And surprise, they still don't feel as confident as they should.
I totally get that. I totally, and and that's the cool thing about nursing. Like, you actually do know so much. You know so much, but you think you'll meet someone that knows a bit more than you, or knows a bit more than you in another area, and that's because they're specialized in that, or they just have a better memory than you, or I don't know, like you've got your own thing that you're good at that you naturally will give to your patients, but yeah, you're always learning in nursing, definitely.
Yes, absolutely. So when you graduated, what was your first job?
I had a solid general medical was my,
Yeah.
like, you can't you just heavy gen med. And I remember I had quite interesting placements as a student. Like, I was in the spinal unit and then the medical day unit. Like, I had quite unusual placements, so I never really learned how to, like, um change a catheter or put a catheter in, or like change, even, like, we call them mollies. They're like, adult diapers,
Okay.
like adult, yeah, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
like just basic nursing. I never really did much of that on my student placement. So on my first day they were like, "Oh, Hannah, can you, like, just, like, put this molly on a patient?" And I was like, "What? All right, all right." I was like, "What?" It
Please.
was so bad.
Actually, no, I need help. I'm new.
I need help. Yeah, well, I mean, I figured, like, it's kind of like putting on a pair of, like, pants. Like, it's, come on here. But then then they were like, "Be careful, this patient's quite aggressive." And I was like, "What do you mean aggressive?" Like, I had no awareness of what Gen Med was like. And by the end of it, I love Gen Med. There is just something so foundational, and it's just the core of nursing. Like, yes, you may have someone surgically, requiring turns, or, healing, but at the end of the day, like, we all will die of a medical issue. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. I love it. And, like, it's heavy. You need to work as a team. You need to ask for help every day. You're going to have to ask for help. You can't do Gen Med without by yourself. And I
Right.
just love the teamwork about it all. Yeah.
Yeah. I think over here, that's what we would call med surge, is like a
It's such
general, yeah, because you get medical patients and you get surgical patients.
so
And
cool.
everyone sort of dreads it, but it is nursing 101. This is what, if you learned anything in nursing school, it was probably close to what you're doing on a gen med floor. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, gosh.
You're like a jack of all trades, aren't you? Like,
Yeah.
you're constantly, like, checking up on people's temperatures. Are they septic? Are they in retention? The amount of people, they were mostly what we call NFR, not for resus. Um, but a lot of patients, the most amount of patients that I saw pass away was on my Gen Med ward, because they're just so sick. They're also quite old, and the elderly. Like, I have so much respect for um how stoic they are and how gracious they are, and they just really love and respect the work that you do, and I, in return, like, what they can offer as a person in the community. I don't know, I think a lot of elderly become and feel invisible, and I love making elderly people feel heard and listened to and advocated for, and that's a lot of Gen Med as well.
I love that because I love working with the elderly. And when I first went to nursing school, or actually my first job was at an adult only hospital, because we were on this massive campus and the children's hospital was right next door. So we didn't take kids. And then I later on in my career, I, would go to a hospital where they took kids and adults. And I'm like, no, no, no one wants this. You don't want that. Mom and dad don't want that. The kid. And I love kids. It's not that. It's not my thing. The older people are my thing. So yeah,
Totally.
right. So
Okay.
you eventually went into, I guess, practice nurse. So you went to the clinic somehow. How did you?
Oh, kind of. There's a few steps in between. So I started in the heavy gen men ward. Often we are kind of encouraged at our final year of nursing school to like start in the ward because it's easy to like step um not down. It's like step across
Yeah.
to like more acute stuff later.
Okay.
Like get the foundation of nursing under your belt for the first year, first 2 years. Some people stay for like for ages. Some people stay. I know someone that's been on the ward and since they started nursing,
Mhm.
start, since they graduated from nursing for like 6 years, and that's awesome. And they will also accumulate acute skills, and that they'll become like very high up and on their ward. So it kind of depends if you want to go hierarchically up in the ward
Mhm.
or across to like different units. So I chose the across because I wanted more acute stuff. I wanted to just tighten my acute care and assessment skills. So I went to what's called an acute medical unit, which kind of after you present to emergency or A&E, if it's a medical issue, you'll go straight to the acute medical unit.
Okay.
And then from the acute medical unit, you'll go to the ward. So I kind of went to like the one step before the in between ED and the ward is like the acute medical unit. So that's where
Okay.
I was for I think the longest I've been there, which was 3 years.
Wow.
And I became I'd be in charge overnight. Out of nowhere, I was suddenly nurse in charge overnight. And I was like, what I shouldn't be here. This is this is wrong. This is really wrong. But then also you like stepped into the role because you had to. Like
Right.
no one else wanted to, and you're like, well, okay, I guess I'll do it because no one else does, and I'll do a good job. Um, the worst shift of my life was the one I was in charge of. It wasn't because I don't think it was because I was in charge. But like you just have one of those shifts, where you're like, man, that was a really bad shift. But you learn from it and you grow from it, and you actually like. I think that acute unit, I was so impressed by all my colleagues and how brave they all were. Like we had some pretty aggressive patients. We had some, aggressive alcoholics, mental health patients, on top of working acutely on their medical side of things
Yeah.
and some of my colleagues, like some of them, like like little females, even like they just got into it. They just were so brave, and I really commend my colleagues over that time. So that was 3 years in the acute setting, and then I was like, I need something different.
Hmm.
How about Switzerland?
You went to Switzerland?
I went to Switzerland. I was like, you know what? I'll just go to Switzerland. So there was a really awesome opportunity in Switzerland where they needed a registered nurse who could ski instruct, because I can also ski instruct.
No way. Did you
Yeah.
have to speak? What do they speak? German? What did you have to speak another
It
language?
was no, I didn't. It was an international kind of situation where it was
Okay.
international students. Yeah. So they'd come to see us on school camp, which was like a ski camp, and I was the nurse kind of essentially for 24 hours, like over that time. But I also had to have my own group to ski instruct. And then
Oh,
I'd get like a walkie talkie and they'd be like, Hannah, we need you. A child's hit their head, maybe concussed. And I'd be like, okay, well, you take my team and I'll just go check on this child. And the kid's like, I don't want to ski. Like, like they just don't want to ski. And it's like, okay. A lot of, yeah, that was cool. So that was only for 3 months, but it was
Okay.
awesome to
Oh,
explore the world, and that was a little day off, like a bit of time off. And then I
yeah.
started my urgent care nursing, which was where I finally got introduced to pediatrics, because I've never worked with little kids.
Yeah.
Um, Little kids scare me, like sick kids scare me.
Yes.
Okay.
Me too. And I never conquered that fear. Have you conquered that fear?
Mm.
Hmm.
I don't think I have. I love, like I say, I value my colleagues, and I am so inspired by them. And there's a couple of colleagues that have got like they are pediatric nurses. Some
Yeah.
of my close friends are peds nurses, and I'm kind of like, how do you do it? How do you do it? And they're like, kids are fine. Like if kids are sick, they're actually really sick. I'm like, yeah, but like,
Point.
what if you what if you give them the wrong dose? Like, what if you over prescribe, or you don't prescribe, but what if you accidentally administer something, or
Yeah.
like, or the parent, like what if the parent's like freaking out, or like what if the kid's really sick, and then like, they're not for resus. I mean, they are for resus. I always found like at the end of the day, at least Mrs. Smith is NFR.
Are you right?
Like I kind of had that little safety blanket to be like, I will keep Mrs. Smith alive, but at the end of the day, if it's her time, it's her time. And she's had a good innings, she's 85.
Yeah.
She's gonna be okay. There was just so much more pressure as a peds nurse to like
Yeah.
make sure you obviously keep them alive. But like, I don't know. Yeah, I've never quite gotten over that fear as well, actually. Yeah.
Well, I can relate because you're like, kids are not supposed to die. They're not supposed to be sick. They're not supposed to be any of that. It's abnormal. And
Totally.
the older population, it's expected, they'll have some sort of ailment. Like you said, Mrs. Smith, she's 85, and
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing to be there with her during that time. When the
Yes.
kid is getting a cancer diagnosis, that's not, no, I don't know,
Totally.
can't. So
Totally.
and then there's some nurses who want to be there for the parents, we're going to get through this and this. I'm like, goodbye.
Yeah.
I'm out
Yeah.
of here.
And that's how people find their speciality, I think. Like, I find that some peds nurses would be like to me, I don't know what to do if a person's having a heart attack. I'm like, come on, Mona, like, come on, like, aspirin, like, what is there not to know? But like, that's how they think with
It's Mona.
peds.
Come on.
Mona, Mona. And like just be like, she'll be right. Whereas, and like, it's cool. I find, yeah, you find your own skill set and strengths, and I always found like, yeah, with working with a patient that's in the elderly, or at least just not peds, you could just go one on one. Like, you just, all you needed to do was just kind of talk to them, and then eventually talk to the family. I find um parents really scare me as well. Like, parents are scared, and I don't have a good enough poker face to be like, and we've always been told like, never really say like it's going to be okay. Like, you just
Right.
can't really say that.
Right.
um and that's all the parent wants to say, and I am such a people's pleaser. Like, that is probably my one issue, is I love to please everybody.
Yeah.
And all I would want to say to a parent is like, it's going to be okay. But like, I can't say that when
Right.
their baby is like got like sets of like 80%, and they're like on their way to hospital. It's hard to please a parent. So I find pediatrics hard. Yeah.
Well, and then what do you say? You don't know if it's going to be okay. I accept that I can't say that. And so you're like, sorry.
Yeah.
That's it.
Would you like a cup of tea? I often say things like, hey, this happens every day. Like, we see this every day. Don't worry. You did the right thing. You brought them in at the right, well, I don't say right time. I say you did the right thing, because like maybe they did bring their kid in a little bit too late.
Right.
Um, or I just like reassure them, like, hey, do you want to go in the ambulance with them? Because the next job that I worked in, we kind of, and I still casually do that from time to time, is where it's urgent care, and we sometimes move the patient from the urgent care, either discharge home or to the hospital. And
Yeah.
sometimes we call the hospital what's called lights and sirens. So that's just like, get here straight away and then transfer them straight to ED or ICU. Um, yeah, so often I just say things like, do you want to go in the ambulance? Or just distract them, like, hey, we've got it under control here right now. The doctors are just doing their thing. You just stay right here. You've got this. It's hard, eh? Like
You're
sometimes
like, I don't want to say any of this.
yeah, and it's like you're kidding yourself. Like you're like, who am I to say that? Like, you know, it's gonna be well, you just sometimes I find working with parents, they know because they aren't sick, they're not distracted, they're all their attention is on their kid. They know that their child's not well, and yeah, whereas I like to deal with the patient when they are sick and reassuring someone that's actually on the bed. Like, I often will here we go, a little bit of a segue. I enjoy making people laugh and making people feel okay and making a bit of a not a joke out of the situation, but like you're putting the pads on a patient because they're kind of peri arrest and you're like they could maybe have a heart attack. I'll say like, oh, I just put a hair on that chest, ha ha ha, as I'm like slapping the pads on, just to kind of like distract the patient from like freaking out that they could die with
Yeah.
just a little bit of humor, because humor works so well. Humor is the opposite of fear.
Right.
And when people come to hospital or they are unwell, they are in fear. And I find I can't really be humorous to a patient's family member or a mum or dad because it's a serious situation. But I
Yeah.
find I can be a little bit humorous,
Yeah.
have a little laugh. It's not on at them, it's just lighten the situation to the patient on the bed themselves. And that's normally not a pediatric patient, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that makes so much sense because especially if you've seen the patient before and hey sir, you're here again, or maybe these pads will fit better this time. Oh,
Yeah.
you shaved your chest this time. I don't know. This
Yeah.
is that does make so much sense, Hannah. So that is a good segue into how I found you. I found you and I followed you, and then I kept liking everything. So for everyone listening or watching, I found Hannah. She is That Nurse Hannah on Instagram. And so she's urgent care nurse by day, and she is comedian by night. Hannah, did you even start? And she has over 20,000 followers now. I'm going to call myself an OG. I started following her when it was like at 7, and it has just exploded because you have all of these routines. Do you do them daily? I don't know. How do you come up? We'll back up. How did you even think to start this account and do this?
Great question. It started, I'd say, when I was in the acute medical unit.
Okay.
I remember being like, morale needs a bit of a boost, and this was pre-COVID. Okay, so morale was low.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like, morale needs a bit of a boost. And I had some colleagues that would be keen to like film me. They were great. They'd be like, Hannah, I'll film you, but you just like do what you want to do. And I remember thinking like how funny it would be to like do a little skit, um, kind of like Breaking Bad, the how they make how they make drugs, and they're in those yellow suits.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's funny because like this is before we really used PPE. Like we hardly ever really used the yellow full length PPE suits.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's pretend that we're making something and you're not seeing what we're making. And then at the end we're just making like a coffee. Like the whole idea was to like, make it look kind of like cheeky, naughty. What are we doing? And then it's like coffee. And I think I got a few of my friends involved and that was cute. And then I was like, cool. I like that. Let's do another concept where you know the Fergie Glamorous video? I mean the Glamorous song. G
Oh, yes,
L
Fergie.
yeah, yeah. Fergie, yeah.
Yes.
I was like, it's funny because nursing isn't glamorous, but like let's make it glamorous by like doing all these little shots of like us like holding urine or like throwing away a rubbish bin, or pulling up some, a pair of pants on someone. And I guess the irony was like doing something that looks naughty or like doing something and then it's, bazinga, it's like not that, it's like the opposite.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the concept, and I would do this with my colleagues and then I'd show my colleagues and we'd just laugh and we just thought it was so funny. And
Yeah.
then it kind of got like a little bit like, Hannah, probably don't do this at work. You should probably. I didn't do it at work. I definitely did it after my shift was finished, but like,
Yes,
you know
of course.
I should probably do them at home because
Right.
it's probably easier and more kosher.
Right.
And yeah, and then some people just I was like, it's easy if I'm just in them rather than people in them, because some people don't want to be in the film, they just want to like
Right.
be behind the scenes. And then I was like, well, okay, you're lost. And then and then yeah, so anyway, and then I kind of ended up doing it by myself, and then TikTok came into play. TikTok was not
TikTok.
even around. Yeah, TikTok came in and I was like, what's TikTok? And that's just kind of how it all really started, a morale boost for the colleagues. And then I would post one every week and they'd be like, oh, Hannah, I saw that one, that's really funny, I totally relate. It was just a relatable thing for nurses. And then people would be like following me that weren't nurses, or my friends that weren't nurses, and they'd be like, yeah, I get that. Like as a mum, I get that. Or like as a patient that I went to the hospital once, I get that. So it became quite relatable for everyone involved. And now I'm $20,000 and yeah, that's good.
Glamorous. GLAM.
Oh,
I'm trying
oh.
to remember the one that I first saw of you. It was over a year
Mm.
ago, and it was the one where they were yelling. I tried to find it. I'll post or I'll repost it if I can find it. They're like, nurse, nurse, what's your name? And you were like, you pointed to your back.
Yeah.
You remember
There
this
was
one?
a, yeah, there's two of them. One is that's not my name. That's not my name. Is it that one?
No,
Or was it still don't know my name? It was
that's
that
it.
one.
It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
that
yeah.
one. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, stranger. Still don't know my name.
It's a good
Who's the
theme, that one.
singer? Who sings that song?
Oh, Leopard? No, but it's in Euphoria, the TV show.
He's the redhead. Sean
Oh,
Mendes, something.
Ed Sheeran. No,
That's it. Ed
Ed
Sheeran.
Sheeran.
It
The
was
only version.
and it was perfectly timed. And you were like,
Yeah.
still don't know my. And you pointed, yeah, you can't see it, my name to the back.
Yeah. But like, isn't it so true? Like you
Yes.
wear a name badge every day
Every
and
day.
they're like, nurse, and you're like, yo, like, can you read? That's actually how my my husband that I met on, yes, on the ward. That's how I kind of fell in love with him.
Oh,
We just a little side
yes, I
story.
want to hear
We
it.
um we were he was a medical student and I was a nurse, and he wanted me to like help move a patient up the bed, and I was like, oh my God, so annoying. Not my patient. Like I have these patients. This is not my patient. But I like showed him how to use what we call a sliding sheet, like a slippery
Uh-huh.
sand. I'm not sure if you guys have those.
Yeah.
And I pulled the patient up the bed, and then he was like, thank you, Hannah. And I was like, oh my God, you know my name? But I realized I was wearing my name badge. Um, but it's a simple. I was like, wow, this guy is so sweet. He's like taken the time to learn my name. And I think that's an important thing as a nurse, that like we learn the patient's names. Um, if they're well enough, obviously, like if they're not well, they don't have to call us by our names. But there is something lovely about like, hey, we are two humans that also just deserve to be like treated with respect. And I find the stereotype is that nurses aren't often treated with respect.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where like, look, we wear a name badge. If you can read, and you can read what my name says, please try and say it.
Please try and
Yeah.
use my name.
Please. I mean, please. Yeah. So yes, but just something relatable but funny, but also like it's funny, haha, but it's also like, but you know, it's educational, you know, it's got a serious undertone, which I love to incorporate in my videos. New Zealanders are very good at we laugh at a lot of things. We take humor, we do humor well, and we often have very serious advertisements with humor. Because we respond well with humor. Because you listen to it, it's engaging, but it's also like, oh, but you know, this is a kind of an important thing to say. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's kind of like that old adage where, there's a little truth behind every joke. It is like this, and you do it so well where you're making fun of it, and then there's this undercurrent of the lesson. I love it. That's right.
Exactly it. Yes,
Oh
yes, the
gosh.
lesson. Yeah.
So what's next? Are you just gonna keep cranking out skits? Please, please say yes.
I will, absolutely, Erica. For you, I will. I do it because I love it. Like I find joy in it. It's like a hobby. And
Yeah.
I think as soon as I find it not fun, I will stop doing it. And I haven't found it not fun. I've always found it. I love making it creative. Obviously, there's like that influencing side coming through where like someone will be like, can you please, promote my product?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, if I resonate with it and I use it or I take, I value it, I will. And that's another level of like, okay, how do I make this educational, nursing related, funny, and I promote the product, so I like that challenge. I will continue doing them because I enjoy them. But next year we are moving, we are leaving New Zealand, and we're heading to New York.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it like
Yeah.
permanently, or is this for job stuff, or you don't have to say?
It's for a job for my husband. So
Okay.
he's a hopefully it all works out.
Yeah.
These are so hard. But yeah, if it all works out, the plan is that he has a job in New York, and I will be joining him, living my best Carrie Bradshaw life.
I see a skit. I see a skit in your future.
Yeah. So good. So that's kind of exciting. It's just a little chance to get out of this little town. Yeah, and then we'll probably come back. I'll continue to make the videos. I've always found that like just because I might not be on the floor, I still work on the floor as a nurse right now. Like I work 4 days a week. I think I'm still that nurse Hannah. Like even though I may not be working as a nurse, I'm still that nurse Hannah, and I still get the whole what it's like to be a nurse. Even like the idea in promoting like health and wellness for nurses, like have a year off. If you're
Yeah.
burned out, like you can go to New York and have a year off because this is what it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
we gotta look after ourselves. Yeah.
I
So,
love that because you'll probably, I find myself, I'll always identify as a nurse. I don't care what job, I'm a nurse. In my heart, I'm
yeah.
always a nurse. And if I have to take time off or if I do something else, if I go to New York and meet you for brunch, I mean,
Please, please,
I would totally do it. Yes.
please, Erica,
Aw.
absolutely.
Well, I'm
Love
very
that.
excited for you. When do you think it
Thank
will happen, your move?
We start next year, early next year, like January, we're going to Australia first.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Australia, and then we're going to visit my sister who lives in Sweden.
Oh,
Yeah, doing a bit of it. The thing with New Zealand, it's like this tiny island in the bottom of the southern hemisphere, that like as soon as you like get above the equator, you
Yeah.
know, you kind of are like, okay, gotta explore the world, because it's like the flight is so long from New Zealand to anywhere, you know, like it's like a 12-hour flight to get to LA from New Zealand.
Oh, is it really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So you make the effort that when you do leave New Zealand for an adventure, you kind of do quite a lot of travel at that time for New Zealanders. It's
Yeah.
just while you can, while you're out of the country. Yeah.
It's
So
almost like you like broke out and you're like, deuces, I'm off to see the world.
yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
You know, I've heard
Without
New Zealand is one of the most beautiful places, though. Is this true, or are you biased? But I've heard that. Wasn't Lord of the Rings filmed there in part?
Oh, it certainly was. Sir Peter Jackson, he's a Kiwi. He's a New Zealander, so he
Oh.
obviously was biased, and that's why he chose to do a lot of filming there, obviously. It's one of the most beautiful places. It's got okay, this will freak you out. There is nothing in New Zealand, no animal that can kill you in New Zealand. We do not have bears. We do not have snakes. We don't have crocodiles. We don't have spiders. We haven't. If you go for a hike, there will be nothing apart from a human that could actually hurt you in New Zealand. Yeah,
Wow.
so cool. Yeah, all we have is like birds and just lots of birds. We're really into our birds. Yeah,
I had
New
no
Zealand's so cool.
idea.
Yeah, I
Wow.
know. So all that bushwalk, we call it bushwalk, but I guess we call it, I think it's hiking, but we call it
Okay.
tramping.
Okay.
Tramping is like a thing to do in New Zealand because one, beautiful the scenery, and two, you will never find like a coyote or a lion or a bear on your walk. Nothing will hurt you in New Zealand. Yeah.
Well, if that isn't like an advertisement, are you here? Come on.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
cool.
Hannah, thank you so much for talking to me. I really
You're
appreciate
so
it.
welcome. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for following me. Thank you for discovering me and letting me talk to you.
Yes, I'm going to. I wish we could do a skit together, but I'm not as creative as you are. I could send you films of me doing something dumb and I don't know. But I see your stuff and I'm just like, this is so smart. This is so creative. This is so funny. And I can actually see why non-nurses like it because it does educate them. Like, this is part of what being a nurse is. And it's kind of funny and it's kind of sad. Like we were talking before about that hot nurse skit,
I know.
putting on her Halloween costume. And then the reality, this is
Yeah.
actually.
Hot. Like I'm sweating under this PPE. And you're like trying to get the IV line in and you're like this is like, and then you can't leave the room because you're infectious, and then you have to ring the bell to be like, can I have another IV line, please? I missed. You know, it's just like the reality is, you know, people are like sexy nurse, sexy hot nurse, and you're like, yeah, well, yes and no.
In girl world, Halloween is the one night a year when a girl can dress like a total slut and no other girls can say anything about it. The hardcore girls just wear lingerie and some form of animal.
I am sexy, but not in this role.
And not right now. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year 2024. So good.
Let's go.